I'm joined today with Ms. Rupangi Kadakia, Web Services Executive at NASA. Rupangi, welcome.
Thank you very much.
So Rupangi, you have extensive experience as a Chief Information and Security Officer prior to your role at NASA. Can you elaborate a little bit about your past experiences?
Sure. I started in the security field in about 2000, where I was the security director and the director for new technology for a presidential initiative called FirstGov, which is now the USA.gov platform that General Services Administration runs. In that role, it was very interesting because to me, it really took a lot of my previous background, which was really actually in therapy. I used to be a therapist.
Wow.
And it really helped me understand how to build a good security program or a security initiative that really took into account on how to be a good steward of government data. So as we built this FirstGov environment, what we found was that a lot of the security controls, security risk management strategies really weren't there. They were not part of the NIST framework. So working with NIST, working with a lot of the different government agencies, we built a whole new framework on how to do e-government.
Wow.
And that has become really the standard for information security now. After that role, I went to the Department of Homeland Security, where I was the Chief Information Security Officer, working very closely with the Cybersecurity Research Director. So looking at not only information management security from a government agency perspective, but also looking at how do we take security and help integrate that into the research, development, testing, and evaluation process of a lot of the products that we were helping other companies consumerize. So to me, that's where my real passion for security really got honed in. After my 5 years there, I went to the International Finance Corporation as the Chief Information Security Officer there.
That's at the World Bank, right?
At the World Bank Group,
right.
Where it was a very different perspective, a financial institution, very different controls, but it was also a global risk management strategy that had to be put in place. What I found was this is where my previous educational background in psychology and in behavior of people really was a great fit in building a security program that was global, that had very different risk management across different sectors or regions of the country or of the globe. And I think I was successful in building a great program that really did have a good balance between giving country offices and their IT staff some autonomy in how they did their business, with very good controls on how we were able to standardize those.
Right, and then you moved on to NASA, where I believe you have migrated over 150 applications into the cloud,
right,
which is no mean feat, right? It's not easy at all,
right.
And you're also a champion for Agile and DevOps practices. So can you elaborate a little bit about what security means to you now
Sure.
that you're actually in the weeds trying to get applications out the door?
Sure. Well, one of my biggest mottos is that you got to practice what you preach. So being a Chief Information Security Officer, you get to set policy, you get to do the governance, but how do you actually apply those to the real life projects and tasks that are at hand? And at NASA, this has been the greatest opportunity. Being able to build out an entire security framework in the cloud, in the public cloud of all means, and being able to show realistic lessons learned and optimized ways of moving not only websites,
right,
which we have, NASA has over 1,500 public ones,
wow,
but also web applications that could have sensitive data, could have data that really needs to be protected very carefully in a secure way that's optimized, low cost, and something that we can build upon.
So, Rupangi, tell us a little bit about how you enable and enforce security policies.
Sure. So part of what you have to really understand is you have to understand the culture of the organization that you're working for. What I have found is every single organization I've worked for, whether it's a government agency or an international financial institution or a private sector company, they have a very different threshold for what they call what is acceptable, how their practices are defined, and what is the biggest priorities. So if you think about from a NASA perspective, we are an organization who really wants to share as much information as possible. We have massive data sets of information that we want to share. So we look at integrity very carefully. So my goal is, as I'm building out my web services program, that I focus on integrity and availability of that information. But there are also a lot of data sets and a lot of data that I have that are very focused on confidentiality. So I look at that from a different type from a different perspective. So the programs that are really looking at sharing that data are going to have a very different risk threshold than the folks who want to protect the data that they're trying to process. So policies have to be built upon what that culture really looks like.
So it's really to enable the business part.
Absolutely.
Of it, right? So talking about risk, right? So it's not a question of if, but when we get a breach.
Right.
So there's this term about resilience, right? Can you expand a little bit about
Sure.
Cybersecurity resilience for
Sure.
organizations?
So resilience basically means that you just have to assume that somebody's in your network. Right. Somebody has access. So how do you, first of all, reduce that exploitation as quickly as possible? How do you keep running your business and make sure that the critical information is not being leaked out? And then how do you recover as quickly as possible? And how do you do that cost effectively? Those are the real resilience factors. Now, there's multiple frameworks that people can use. The Software Engineering Institute has this whole resiliency framework. However, the problem with these frameworks are you can't just take it and it's not a checklist.
It's not an apply as is,
Yeah,
right?
it's not apply. You can't just put a control in place and you'll have resiliency.
Right.
We have to really start thinking about cybersecurity and risk management in a very different light. We have to look at cost, benefit. We have to look at what is our crown jewels? What is those data assets that are really, really important, that maybe our intellectual property that give us the competitive edge, or that may really have an impact on our reputation if we don't protect them in the way that they're supposed to be protected. So once you have that kind of conversation, and this conversation has to occur at all levels of the organization.
So do you think that the businesses that I'm talking about the business side of the business that you deal with, do you think that there's a good understanding of security at those levels?
If you look at security, if I said to a program manager or an executive in one of our mission, what is security to you?
Right.
It's not going to resonate very well. However, if I can put that particular question in a way that really can show business risk, then we have a common ground and a common place to talk. So for example, a lot of work that I've been doing is with the mission directorates. So we have two different kinds of programs. We have programs where we want to share data. So the ones that we really want to share data, I really focus on security from an availability and integrity perspective, and they get that. And then the folks who really want to control data, I talk about it from that perspective. So it's really about making sure that your messaging and the way that you talk to folks about cybersecurity is based on the business risks that those programs understand.
So you want to make sure that these messages resonate with their
Yes.
needs, right?
Right.
So final question for you, really a message for the audience, anything that you look at 2015 and beyond, what kind of message do you want to leave our audience with?
Sure. So one of the most important things that I have found is that cybersecurity or information security or whatever you want to call it is really becoming a multidisciplinary program. So if you just want to wait for that cybersecurity or the IT specialist to figure out how to protect, how to make good decisions, then we have lost the game. So I would say the biggest message is how do we build a program within organizations, whether it's government or corporate, where it's really focused on good business risk management.
Thank you very much, Rupangi. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Right.